Hello, and welcome to the Summer Learning Series presented by Shake Up Learning. My name is Katie Moran, and today I'm going to show you some of my favorite little tips and tricks in Google to help build your classroom toolkit. I used to be a high school history teacher. I'm currently an instructional technology resource teacher, and I'm a Google certified trainer. So one of my favorite things to do is show people how they can be using Google Apps and websites to improve their workflow. Some of the tricks are new, some are old, not a lot of them are flashy, but 100% practical and will improve your teacher workflow as well as your students' learning. I had a terrible time narrowing it down to just a few tips and tricks for us today. So if you are one of the All Access Pass subscribers, you'll get a resource with tutorials and how-tos for everything I show you today, as well as a couple dozen more. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So to get started, let's look at some formatting and font choices that we have inside of a Google Doc. Did you know you could add your own fonts to a Google Doc? We all have our preferences, and it's rarely ever the default. I'm sure many of you have looked in here before, but I'd like to show you a couple of my favorite Google fonts. So to get started, let's go to the drop-down menu for your Google fonts. When you click on the drop-down menu, you'll see the defaults and any that you have already added. To add more, choose More Fonts. From here, you can sort by style, you can sort by all sorts of things, popularity. I want to focus today on Lexend. Lexend is the dyslexic-friendly font created by Google about 20 years ago. Now, I'm not dyslexic, so I don't notice a major difference in this font from others, but those who do struggle have an easier time reading with the extra spacing and some of the extra flares for the L's, the I's, the P's, and so on. So you can choose to add by selecting a font, and then by having a check mark next to it, just click OK. Before we finish, I want to show you one more just for fun. It's called Redacted. It's a fun, silly font. You can have a block of text, or you can have your font look like squiggles. And I'm going to say OK. So here's a document I have. I'm going to want to choose all of my documents to have Lexend to help readers who may or may not need this accommodation with my documents. So I'll come up and I'll change it to Lexend and lots of different options. But just to show you what redacted looks like, you can take any text you want. And if you come down to the R's, you'll see the redacted block or the squiggle. And by doing that, it takes your text and it hides the lettering. This could be a really fun way to do fill in the blank with your students, or as a way to have a big reveal for topics and content. This might also be a really easy way to redact important student information when you're having a student conference or a parent-teacher conference. Just an interesting tool to have in your toolkit. So I'm going to go ahead and change this back to Lexend. There we go. The next thing I'd like to show you is paragraph styles. Now, I've been using a word processor for a long time, and I never used paragraph styles until a few years ago when somebody shared with me the benefits. Paragraph styles are the different types of headings and subheadings that you can add to your document. And honestly, if I was going to type a title, I would just type a title. I wouldn't bother to come over and choose to select title. Now I know that when you use paragraph styles, it will help any screen readers or text-to-speech because it encodes the document differently so that a screen reader knows how to jump around the page, making it easier. So now I can use title. But like I just finished saying, I love a font. So let me show you how you can customize your paragraph styles. Give me 1 minute to format my document. Okay. So I've gone through and I have changed everything to my Lexend font. I have created the title the way I want it to look, bold, extra space and color. I have a heading that I want highlighted and some subheadings that'll be bold. So I've kind of gotten it started. Let me show you how this works. I'm going to select the title. I'm going to come over to my paragraph styles. And when I hover over title, I'm going to choose Update to Match. Now when I come back to the drop-down menu, my title will match this document. So I'm going to keep going. Let me choose my header, update to match. So now when I come to my next header, I can just click apply and it matches. I would like this to be a header. And for my subheading, I'll choose heading 2. So let me first update to match. And now my document is formatted exactly how I want it, and I've showed Google Docs how I want my paragraph styles to look. Now, I don't want to have to keep redoing this for every document. So once you have all of your headings and subheadings and title and your normal text set, go ahead and come down to Options, save this as my default. And so now, whenever you open a new document, these fonts will be waiting for you in paragraph styles. You may also notice that on the left-hand side, an outline has been forming automatically as I added the title and the headings and the subheadings to my document. This is the second reason you're going to want to use paragraph styles. This outline that's created simply by making sure you use those paragraph styles make it really easy to jump through your document so you can guide students to the exact place they need to be to match where you're working. For example, if I click here on the major events, it jumps me down to that document. And I'm going to right click and you'll notice that every heading and subheading now has its own unique URL link that you can put into another document, an email, a presentation, however you send information to students. So you don't just send them to the bigger document, you send them to the exact activity they need for today. Now I'd like to show you some ways to improve your teacher workflow. I'm going to be showing you a lot of tips and tricks inside of Google Docs. I've really been using Docs lately as a way to organize my life and to organize learning activities for students. Because of the inclusion of smart chips and building blocks, it really helps me to provide information for myself and students without having to have a bunch of tabs open. So that's the focus. How can we bring information into one place as a learning hub? So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to be looking at 3 things: the @insert menu, smart chips, and building blocks. We'll begin with the @insert menu. So when I'm in the groove and when I'm working, I'm not going to call it lazy. I'm going to call it efficient. I don't like to have to stop and use my mouse or trackpad. I'm always trying to think of a shortcut or a way to keep my hands on the keyboard. So normally you would have to come to the insert menu to insert some of your options, and even up here at the top, some of your formatting choices. But what we're going to do is use the @ key for all of the possible shortcuts we need for those inserts. So if I hit Shift and the number 2, it pulls up my insert menu, and you can see there's a lot of different things that we can add here. Let's start small. Let's start by adding those paragraph styles we just created. So I will start with title, and I hit enter, and now I can start typing my title using those presets I just created. Okay. Then let's say I'd like to add an image to start my document. So @image. And now I'd like to start providing some work for students to use. So how about I create a table, @table, and I would like it to be, and I'm going to add my headers. There we go. So now I'm kind of creating an organized space, and all of this being done with the @insert menu. And I can keep going, so maybe I want them to look at the attack on Pearl Harbor. And to do that, I'm going to link them to Arts and Culture, a Google website that has tons of primary resources that may or may not be available to students because it's an additional service. And to be honest, some of the content can be a little more mature. But you as a teacher, this is a great place for you to come and curate information you'd like to share. For example, a lot of the Google expeditions we used to love using with virtual reality now live as stories inside Arts and Culture. So here is one of those. I would like to provide this kind of a curated lesson for my students. I will click the link and paste that link. And as I hit the enter key, it becomes an active text. And if I click on the link just once, I will have the option to rename it into something that's a little more appealing for students to see. Another @insert we can try is a drop-down menu. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to @drop-down. And here in the drop-down, there are two presets that you can use that Google's created for you. Project status, which is similar to what I'm looking for, but not exact. And then there's review status. I can always create my own. So let's say I create a drop-down menu. Not started. In progress. Completed. And I'll trash this one. Give it some nice color coding so that it's easy to understand at a glance, and I'll rename this Student Progress. Now I have a drop-down menu, and if I share this with students and make them editors for this document, then they can come in and change the drop-down menu, a way to keep themselves accountable for information and a way to communicate with me how far along they are with the research and the project. So just off the bat with the @insert menu, you can see there's a lot of great ways we can organize information. If we take that a step farther, let's talk about smart chips. Smart chips are tiny pieces of information that link us to an outside website and to another app. And right now, most of those are Googly apps. So we can have a smart chip for a person, a place, a date, a calendar, and a file. I'm just going to show you a couple of those right now. And this is a good time to say that some of our smart chips are available to all Google Workspace for Education users, and some of them are only available to those who have the Teaching and Learning Upgrade or Education Plus subscriptions and licenses. I will make sure to let you know if I'm using one that's in those paid features. But for now, let's start with the ones everyone can use, like adding another file. So I'll hit Tab to add another row. You can see the drop-down menu has added. This time, I want to add the class notes that we used. I want to add a file. So I'm going to type @ and start typing the name of the Google file I'd like to attach. And you can see here, I can add the presentation. And do you see how it's gray with a bubble around it? That tells me it's a smart chip. It's linking me to outside information. I even see a preview window here, and this is a great trick whether you're at a conference taking notes, whether it's your students in your class taking notes, whether you're in a faculty meeting, you can open up this presentation within Google Docs. So if I click on Open Preview, I now can preview the presentation so I can continue taking notes right here in my Google Doc. You can continue scrolling so that you can keep up with the presenter or the teacher or your principal who's ever giving the presentation, and it all stays in one space. You can make it larger, you can make it smaller, and then you can double tap for it to go away. Of course, you could also choose to open the link into another tab so that you can click on videos and click on links and have all the bells and whistles. But that preview is a really nice option when you're using a smart chip. So let's talk a little bit more about these smart chips and ways you can use them. So if I wanted to go ahead and tell students when something was due, I could do @date and add the due date. And if I add a time, it can also end up on their calendar. But what if I don't know the date? One of the options that you have as a smart chip is called a placeholder. So I could, @placeholder, I could choose a date. And it's just going to say the word date. And it kind of works like a to be determined, so that students know a date is coming, and then when you know the date, you can click and change it, and then as long as everybody's editors or viewers to the document, they'll see the update with the new date to add to their calendar. You could also think about this as a place to show where students submit work. So one of the issues I had was students never knew where they were supposed to put their work or to add their link. And this would be a way to show them. As long as it's a file in their Google Drive, we can do @placeholder, and we'll do file, and I've made it nice and large, attach your work here. So students can click on top of that link. They can pull anything out of their Google Drive and attach it here. And so it's a nice, clean, neat way to show students exactly where to add their links, as long as it's a Google Drive file. So there are a couple other extra smart chips, and I won't go into too much detail because this is what you're going to see only if you have the Teaching and Learning Upgrade or Education Plus. But you can do some voting chips, which is fun. You can add a thumbs up, a heart, a plus sign, or you can customize to add your own. This might be an interesting way to do a check-in with your students. How did you feel about the work? How do you feel about your progress using different emojis? Also, you can add a timer to the document. They have some presets, but you could also just choose the timer and create your own. I'm just going to do mine real quickly for 15 seconds so you can see that it's not going to be a sound and it's not going to be flashing lights. It's rather subtle. When the timer goes off, there's just a little black box that appears in the bottom left corner to let folks know the timer's gone off. But this could be a game changer for faculty meetings, for student studies, for department meetings, setting a time limit for how long we take to complete an activity or a discussion. You can also have a stopwatch feature. That might be another way for students to kind of become executives of their own learning so that they can see how long it takes them to complete a task. Now let's talk about building blocks. Building blocks is chunks of data that's already been created that you can easily insert into your document. You can see your different options by going at, and then we scroll down to building blocks and you can see lots of different options. Now I'm in the Teaching and Learning Upgrade environment, so you might see a couple of extra options in my dropdown that you don't have. I will make sure I tell you which ones those are if I use them in our presentation. But first, let's just look at how you can add an email. This is probably one of my favorite building blocks they offer, at email draft. I use this all the time. So what it is, technically, is a table with different rows, and anything inside of this table can be emailed. So all of the information around this email will not go. So I could have this embedded in a meeting. Let's say in a department meeting or in a team meeting, we're planning a field trip, and as a team, we want to come up with what letter we send to parents. Anybody who's in the share can work together to collaborate on this email so that you're all on the same page. And then whoever clicks the M button will send it to their own personal Gmail to send. So everyone in the team could work together to draft the email and then individually click on that M to send the email to their own class rosters, their own parents, their own team members. This is a great way to work together and collaborate. Another wonderful option is you have a lot of those tables, kind of like the one I created by myself at the top. You can make your own by going to project, and you can see they're using the placeholder chips so that you can attach files from Google Drive, you can create descriptions, you can do status. So they have these built in for you. But let's say you want to create your own custom building block, and this is one of those extra features, but it's too good not to mention. In this document I'm creating for students, I want to attach a rubric. Rubrics are very important to help our students understand expectations and to know how they're going to be graded. And I have a generic rubric that I use and then tweak and modify for each project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over and I'm going to open that rubric, a document that I keep. I am going to temporarily delete out the specifics, just because I want to keep it as a template for myself. I'm going to select the chart, right click, more options, save as a custom building block. I'll call this rubric, create. Now what happens is I can come back to my document, and again, using that at insert menu, I will at rubric, and it will automatically add my rubric so I can go ahead and start modifying it. You can do this with a list of your students' names. You can do this with a table or a chart. You can use this for a lesson plan outline. You can use this for a handout activity outline so that you don't have to start from scratch. Now, if you're in Education Fundamentals, you're in the free version, this is where you would create a template document that you could copy and paste into. But if you have Teaching and Learning, now you can create your own building blocks so that you don't have to use templates anymore. I spent a lot of time talking about ways to make your life a little easier. Let's take some time to look at some tools that are going to help our students. So to get started with all this World War II research I've been discussing, let's say I send them to an article to read. When we get to the website, there's a lot of things on this page, a lot of options to click on, a lot of links within the documents, and even some ads. For some students, this is too much. Google has an option in their Chrome browser called Reading Mode. We really should show this to our students and empower them to use this option to help them simplify their reading space. To get started, you're going to click on the three dots in the top right-hand corner. You're going to come down to More Tools, and you'll see the option Reading Mode. Now, this very first time, you're going to see an icon pop up at the top that looks like an open book. If you right-click on this, choose to pin, and now the reading mode option will stay at the top of their Chrome browser. They won't have to go looking for it in more tools, and they're more likely to use it as they need it, and not just for this one assignment. Now that we've pinned it to our Google Chrome browser, notice that you can take the panel and widen the panel so that you can compare the article on one side of the screen to a much cleaner reading option on the right. Notice that all those heading options, different clicks and links and ads are no longer a part of the reading. You can also change the reading environment to make it more friendly. So let's start with fonts. That's how we started this presentation, isn't it? And you'll notice that Lexend is one of the options they have in here. You can also choose to make the font larger. You can choose to space more loosely or more standard. You can also choose to widen the letter spacing if that's something that would be helpful. So already you can see the obvious benefits of incorporating this reading mode. If you have an issue with vision or with the screen's brightness, you can choose to change the color to something that's a better default for you. You can also unlink if those links are extra distractions for reading. And again, you can change this panel size to match. Now, one of the things my students would be losing by reading in the reading mode panel as opposed to the article is if there was a video or a diagram. So notice that you are able to scroll through the article. And if there's something in particular that you want to look at, when you double click, it will jump you to that section in your reading mode. One way to really level up this experience for your students is if they need a read aloud accommodation, it is much easier for the text-to-speech readers to read your reading mode panel than the article. So let's say, for example, you're on a Chromebook. On the Chromebook, show students how they can turn on their accessibility features. Choose the Select to Speak, and then they can select the article from within the reading mode, and now they have a reading aloud accommodation for the article you assigned. Now that they've read the article, I want them to do a little bit of writing about it, but I'm also going to teach them how to be ethical with their research. So we're going to talk now about using the citation tool in Google Docs. And once they're here, they can go ahead and start typing their research paper. But I want to show them how they can cite their sources. So while they're working, they can choose to come to Tools, Citations. And once they do that, they can choose the different type of citation they would like to create. They can add a citation source. I'm going to create a website, and I just paste that website right here, click Search, and Google will automatically find the components that they need for a correct citation. I click Continue. I can modify any changes that I found an error, And now that citation is sitting right here inside of my Google Doc. And what's great is students can close this document, restart their computer, refresh, all those things. And this citation is going to live in this document for when they're ready to add it to their paper. So let's say when I'm ready to add the citation, I leave the cursor where I'd like it. And if I click this Cite button, it will add an inline citation in correct format for me. Where was this when I was in college? You can also do this with a book. So for example, I'm going to add another citation. I'm going to do a book this time, and it's a print book. So I'm going to use the ISBN number. So if this is the book that I was using to cite, I've come over and I've added that citation to a note so that I don't have to try to type it. So I will copy this from my Google Keep. This little option living in my side panel, I had that in my Google Keep. I will add my book. Search. It found the book that I was using for research. I click continue. And again, it has a citation ready for me to add. And then when it's all done, all I have to do is come back, hit the enter key a couple of times, insert references, and it creates a works cited reference section for me. This makes it so easy for our students and for us to be ethical with our research and to cite our sources, which is such an important responsibility when our students are researching in a digital space. So the last quick tip I'd like to show that will help our students is actually going to be pretty specific for students who need a closed caption accommodation. There's lots of different ways to add these to video and media, but oftentimes it's in the classroom that a student might need this support. Let me show you a quick, free, and easy way to add closed captions for your classroom. To do this, we're actually going to leave Google Docs and we're going to go to Slides. So I'm just going to create a new tab and I'm going to go to slides.new, which is a nice trick for any Google app if you want to start a new file, docs.new, slides.new, forms.new, etc. But once I'm here, when you go to slideshow mode, and I'm just going to do this with a blank document, I'm going to come down to the bottom corner and click the three dots. Here, I have the option to move the position of the text to the top or bottom of the screen. I can make the font larger or smaller, and when I'm ready, I can click Toggle Captions. The first time, you'll be prompted to make sure your microphone is turned on. Now, you could use this on a presentation at the front of the class, but as you've probably already noticed, this can be very distracting for those who don't need the closed caption support. However, if you show a student or a parent or a coworker who needs this accommodation how to turn this on within any Google Slide presentation, even a quick one they make that's blank, this is something they can keep at their desk so that they can hear the teacher, students asking questions around the room, or maybe even just during a parent-teacher conference. What an excellent, easy, and free accommodation for those who might need it. As we finish up our time together, I'd like to share 2 more websites to add to your classroom toolkit. The first one is Google's Applied Digital Skills. I find myself coming here often to look for lessons to help support our students as they learn how to navigate in a digital world. Sometimes they're not always native on how to use a spreadsheet, build a presentation, or send an email. And Applied Digital Skills is a great place to find resources to help teach our students and to learn ourselves. I recommend checking out Browsing Curriculum, and it will let you look at all the different options we have. These lessons range in age from late elementary all the way up to adult learner. So even you can use this to become more familiar with some of the apps that Google provides. You can search by the digital tool itself. You can search by topic. You can search by type. Some of these are standalone lessons that can be completed within an hour or 2. and other are multi-lesson units that can take many hours to complete. If you find one you like, you can add them to your favorites. So for example, I've often come here to help my students write their resumes. When you come and you find the resume, I can click into the unit and notice that when I scroll down, it tells me that I can probably complete this lesson within one class period. It tells me what digital tools they'll be using so that I know they're available for students. And it also talks about the skills they're going to be learning while they're learning the tool. Each applied digital skill lesson has a bunch of small videos created that are extremely professional, which show the students exactly what they need to be successful in that lesson. It even gives them an action item so that they'll know what they need to do to complete these steps before moving on to the next video. Each video is short in length, has a transcript option, and can be played at the speed of your choice. This is a great way to empower students to learn more. The last site I'd like to show you is all about you. Google Workspace for Education offers a teacher center where they offer trainings and product information so that you can continue learning and growing at your own pace in your own way. So the link to this is in my presentation for those of you who have the All Access Pass, or you can just go to Google and search for the Google Workspace for Education Training Center. For educators, you can choose to click on Training Courses. And here within the website, you will find training courses for all levels of users. And what I really like about the ones they offer here is that not only is it going to show you how to use the tools at a basic, intermediate, and then all of those premium features, but it's also going to show you how to use the tools for you, a teacher. It's focusing on increasing student engagement. It's focusing on accessibility, on different tools built into Google Classroom to help students learn, as well as how to use the Chromebook for instruction to improve learning. All of these tutorials are based on your world and not just hypotheticals in the business world. I highly recommend just checking out the website and seeing what they have to offer, because I'm sure you'll find something to help elevate your game. Thank you all so much for joining me today. This was so much fun. Time flies when you're having fun. I can't believe all the things we covered. I hope you're able to find at least 1, 2, or 12 things you can add to your classroom toolkit. Thank you so much for this opportunity. If you have any questions and you'd like to know more from me, you can find me at techwithkatie.com.